Hi, my name's Kevin Brown, and I'm work for Schneider Electric, and I wanted to thank you for taking some time today to listen to our thoughts on the edge and, more importantly, kind of the entire hybrid environment and how do we build resilient and available solutions for that environment. Quickly, as a quick way of introduction, the Secure Power Division within Schneider, our responsibility is we take the lead for kind of the entire infrastructure that Schneider provides into data centers and smaller IT environments. And really, we view our mission as pretty stated here clearly in this slide is about how do we empower the digital transformation for our customers and do so in a way that are highly available and resilient. But particularly today, there's an emerging challenge we think the industry faces around efficiency and sustainability of these smaller environments. So if you think about data centers, we have a greatly simplified model for this hybrid IT environment that's coming. And one is there's only three types of data centers. One is this big centralized cloud data centers, and I think we're all familiar with these. Then there's what we like to classify as a regional edge data center, which are the IT equipment that you might still have on premise in your old enterprise data centers or even in a colo facility that still are serving kind of a regional area. So that's a view of an edge potentially. But we think what's most interesting is really around this local edge. And the local edge really, you can think of it almost as yesterday's server rooms and wiring closets. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the need for those to start being treated much more like a data center in terms of how do we manage them, how do we support them, than we ever have in the past, because they are the key to making this environment more available and more resilient. What's important to note, though, is that we have to, as an industry, consider sustainability, and the industry really has made tremendous progress in the centralized data centers and the regional data centers and making them very, very efficient. In fact, our models show in the last 10 to 15 years, the industry eliminated maybe 80% of the losses typically associated with the physical infrastructure in these data centers. So it's been great progress, and it really started, about a decade ago. Greenpeace started talking about dirty clouds, and this issue about environmental concerns really pressured the industry to start responding to that. And to the industry's credit, not only did the industry respond, but it's gone beyond. I mean, you see some of these quotes here on this slide talking about what the hyperscale providers are doing to not only worry about making sure they're as efficient as possible, but trying to make sure that they're offsetting that with renewable energy as well. So really trying to minimize the impact that the industry is having on the environment. And what's interesting for us is we're not done with this path of efficiency and sustainability. We're investing as a company and trying to help the industry move forward on this. And here's a few examples that we're doing today. Is, for instance, in our medium voltage line, we are moving very quickly towards SF6 free switchgear. For those who don't know, SF6 is a gas that's used to help insulate the switchgear, but it has a very high global warming potential. It's much worse than CO2. So it's in the interest of avoiding the global warming, elimination of SF6 is a good move. And it's certainly an area that we're trying to lead the industry. In addition, we're very early in trying to help move the industry over to new battery technologies that last longer and therefore are overall more sustainable. If you have a set of batteries that last 3 to 5 years versus 10 to 15, generally the 10 to 15 tend to have a lower footprint. However, we're not done. There's new opportunities that we see. For instance, we're doing a lot of work around liquid cooling and trying to make that much more practical and available for people to deploy. And the reason for that is our models show that liquid cooling on its own has an opportunity to potentially drive down energy consumption by as much as 15% in the data center. So we're excited about the potential for that technology, and we're investing in that. And we also see a lot of opportunity in how do you take data centers and make them more interactive with the grid. In other words, not just consuming power from the grid, but working with the grid to make it more resilient overall, particularly as we have new renewables coming on, and which makes the grid much more variable. So we think data centers have a positive role to play in that area. And as Schneider, we're trying to help drive the industry forward with all of these. However, now it's time for us to also look at the edge. And The local edge in the future is going to face the same challenges that we did as an industry 10 years ago with the cloud. Is what's the impact it's going to have on the grid, and what's the impact it's going to have on society as a whole. And first, we need to get a good definition of a local edge. And there's many of these out in the market that exist, and all of them we found a little lacking. So we decided just to put forward our own as a suggestion. And really what we're trying to capture here is, when we talk about edge, there's a lot of talk about compute, and where does the compute happen? Where are the servers going to live? And it is a very important conversation for the industry. But for us, it's incomplete, because you need to also think about the storage and the networking. So to us, the local edge data center is the point of entry onto the network. And it might only be networking. It might have some compute. It might have storage as well. But the point is this is what brings you onto the network. And that infrastructure, we believe, is mission critical, and in the future is going to become more mission critical if we want to have a highly available and resilient network. So what's interesting is if you take that definition of local edge, what's interesting is we really see three big applications for it. One is kind of this, what we call commercial edge, for retail, healthcare, finance, education. Now, all of those segments have very unique needs. However, when you look at the base infrastructure that they need, the characteristics are pretty similar. So there's kind of a set of solutions that have a lot of similarity that fit within commercial edge. However, those are much different than industrial applications. In general, these are much harsher environments. They might need greater filtration on the air. They may be exposed to much greater temperature variations than what you might see in a commercial edge. And so we're really driving to make sure that we've got the right solutions to help minimize downtime for the solutions moving into that application area. And then the third one, which I think everybody at this point is interested in, 5G and what's the rollout of 5G going to be. But certainly it's clear there's going to be a significant amount of infrastructure that's put out really almost anywhere outside. 5G generally is going to require a lot more antennas than 4G did. Generally, people believe, and there's good reason to believe, there'll be a lot more compute happening in various locations in order to minimize latency and increase responsiveness. So we see another set of solutions there which have to be easily deployed and really able to be deployed almost anywhere. And it really has a different flavor. So again, three big areas for local edge data centers at different flavors: commercial, industrial, telco. So this is the way we tend to look at it. And to give you a little bit about if any of the projections are even close to being true, our models show there's going to be a significant energy challenge for the industry. And to give you some sense of what that might look like, this is our internal analysis and showing on the orange bar what are the cloud data centers. The blue is what I call the regional edge. And you can see the energy equation by 2040 is dominated by the local edge. And in fact, it's hard to even understand what 3,000 terawatt hours means. So we tried to translate it into, but it's equivalent of, say, 275 million households that our industry is going to be consuming of electricity with these small little installations. And we simply have to do something to, so to speak, flatten this curve. It's not going to be, society is not going to allow us to continue to consume energy at this rate. So we're starting at Schneider to become highly focused on what do we do to help the industry meet this challenge. So one way to meet that challenge is by developing highly efficient solutions and ensuring that customers have an easy way to get the best solutions that are out there. So we have an analysis here showing what the impact can be of just taking the technology that exists today that's highly efficient versus what people typically implement. And if you take the latest and greatest technology, you can see a significant reduction in CO2 emissions as well as energy consumption cost. So this is a big problem that already we have the tools to address it if we can only ensure that we're deploying things, designing it correctly, making it match the load that's really required, and ensuring that we're using the latest efficient technologies that we know exist in the marketplace. So we can make it efficient, but also the challenge with the local edge is if you look at the availability equation, the local edge actually dominates. So again, this is a model, and I'm not going to go through all of the details today. And we have a white paper that you can download talking about the resiliency at the edge. So we created a model, and this is purely a model just to help illustrate a point. But most centralized data centers operate, say, at a tier 3 uptime level. And there's some articles out there that say that equates to a 99.98% availability, which I don't know about you, but trying to understand 99.98% is difficult. So we translated this into something simpler, which is 1.6 hours per year of downtime. That's what 99.98% translates into. However, if you assume most of our server rooms and wiring closets, which tomorrow need to be local edge data centers, are running at tier 1, and say tier 1 is going to run at 99.67%. The difference between 0.67% and 99.98% seems quite small, but if you do the downtime equation, it's actually 31 hours of downtime when you combine those two together. So in other words, if I take a tier 1 data center with a tier 3, that availability, when I put them together, goes down, and it is dominated by the availability of your local edge. So in order to have a highly available, highly resilient hybrid IT environment, you need to understand, how do I make my edge as resilient as I can? But that brings a paradox, which is, if anybody who's designed data center knows, resiliency almost always brings a penalty on efficiency. So you almost always, the more resilient, the more redundant you make solutions, the lower efficiency you get. So we simply can't take the practices that we did in tier 3 data centers and apply them in the local edge. We really need to rethink what we're doing in order to make it resilient and efficient at the same time. And this is what we're really focused on. And we think our philosophy that we're on to help address this paradox really comes down to 3 things very simply. One is we need to rethink how we're managing our local edge. So how do I know what's out there? How am I ensuring that what's out there is being proactively managed? How do I know what's in trouble and what needs to be replaced? How can I be more proactive, particularly when you think these local edge data centers, for many customers, you may have hundreds or thousands of them that you're trying to manage. We believe that the tools that have historically been used to manage this equipment are woefully outdated, and we really have made a big investment to see how we can leverage things like AI to help with this challenge that we've got. Second part of our philosophy is dealing with support. So in order to make these highly available, one of the key things is how do you increase the level of support? If you think about a large data center, generally most of those have full-time staffing that is working through to make sure the right preventative maintenance is being done, to ensure that things are being fixed, to ensure that we're recovering from any failures that might occur. Generally, that's a different problem when you have this highly dispersed local edge. And how do you actually go and physically maintain these environments is really quite a challenge. And we think it's important as part of this story to really help with the remote management. If a customer can't remote manage everything on their own, then maybe this is something where we need to rethink how our partners or Schneider itself can help with managing that. So, and then the third thing is, we're doing a lot of work to try and standardize the solutions so that we can very easily develop tools that allow someone to design exactly what they need and then ensure that they're being built the way that it was designed and being deployed using those latest technologies that we know are more efficient. So make sure it's designed, deployed, and then operated in a way that is maximizing the efficiency. So again, 3 big vectors that we're trying to work on to deal with this energy challenge of the edge: manageability, rethinking our support model, and then thinking about how do we make it as easy as possible to standardize and make repeatable the best-in-class solutions that meet the application that each customer specifically needs. So to dive into each of those a little bit, a little bit on our manageability is this is really why we built from scratch a new management tool, which started 3 years ago, and we call it EcoStruxure IT Expert. And this tool is really optimized around the problems that we see at the edge. And it's particularly, it's great for giving you instant visibility, not only of Schneider equipment, but also third party. So we are vendor neutral. We will manage other people's devices as well as our own. But what's important here is that we've got we've got the capability to really allow you to start benchmarking. How are you performing against other people that are similar to you? How are you performing against what would be considered best in class? And allows you to help assess what's happening and how well are you managing your network. Of course, we can do device configuration, firmware update, but perhaps what's most interesting is we've spent the last 3 years really working on data science and AI, and we're starting to use that technology in order to help with alarming and predictive failures and helping you be more proactive with the help of AI algorithms to help predict what you need to be doing and what needs attention inside of your network. So a lot of work in that area, and I'm very excited that we've just recently announced that we've also, for the first time in Schneider's history, or at least in this part of Schneider, we're publishing an API. We recognize that our solution is only a part of the broader ecosystem, and that many times the information that we have and the expertise that we have might need to be integrated into other systems. And so we've announced now that we have an API available that allows people to easily integrate in with whatever system they choose. Additionally, we've taken this analytics capability and this software capability, and we've also paired it with our expertise and services, and really are offering those as another option for our customers. And this is what we call our monitoring and dispatch services. And again, we're trying to provide more options for customers where, suppose you don't have a staff that can monitor what you're doing 24/7. We can help you. We can help augment with our own people or enable our partners to do so as well. So if you have a preferred partner, they can also be enabled to do some of this work for you. And then suppose we find out there's a problem. We've got algorithms that allow us to predict when failures are going to occur. We can actually proactively go out and manage that fleet for you. And so this is a new service that we're just rolling out, and really something that we did as we were looking at the challenge of the edge and how do we rethink, how do we get that kind of availability that we need and ensure that we're being proactive in our management and service. So monitoring dispatch services, very exciting. And again, it's not that we're trying to do everything on our own. We are embracing our partners in this solution as well. So, and then last thing quickly, a little bit on our integrated, pre-configured, prefabricated, eco-structured data centers. But really, these are things where we have tools and we have configurations available and reference designs on, suppose you have a small micro data center that might only be one rack. Do you need it in kind of this industrial environment that I mentioned before? Is it going into a commercial environment? And what's the right set of management tools that you should be putting in place? What about the cooling? We have different types of enclosures depending on what the environment is that you're going into. We can really help guide people to get them the right solution that's got the right fit, finish, size, and efficiency that they're looking for. On the other end of the extreme is what we'd like to call our modular all-in-one, and these are really the prefabricated data centers that are much larger in scale, and they again, these can be deployed anywhere in the world, and again, kind of help maximize matching the application with the infrastructure in a way that's highly deployable and really can go almost anywhere. And then there's the one that's somewhere in between, where maybe you need a little bit more than just one or two racks, but you don't need kind of a full modular data center. You have some space. We can also kind of apply a more traditional data center look in what we call our row and our pod data centers. So very much trying to see almost everybody fits into one of those three categories that they need, and we've really optimized our tools to ensure that we can deliver those. But as I mentioned, we can't do this alone. This is too big a challenge for Schneider to work all on its own to address the challenge of the power consumption at the edge. So we recognize it's going to take not only people like ourselves, Schneider, as a physical infrastructure vendor, but how do we work with the IT vendors? How do we work with system integrators? How do we work with the customer themselves? And even our partners, our managed service providers, who really all need to work together if we're going to meet this challenge. And as I mentioned, we're working on our API, we're working on our services, but here's an example of where we're actually rethinking the way we deliver our products. to enable it to be easier to deploy these different solutions. So what we're showing here is, we developed a very special shock packaging for our racks so that it can be delivered and go to a system integrator. The integrator, it's designed where they can easily take the packaging away, put in the IT gear, put the packaging back on, and ship it to the customer's environment. So you know what you're getting, it's configured correctly, it's going to work. And we worked hard not only with system integrators on this, but also with the IT vendors to ensure that when this gets delivered, it's meeting the warranty requirements of all of the IT equipment inside. So it's meeting our warranty requirements, it's meeting the IT warranty requirements, so that you have the peace of mind that what's getting delivered is going to be supported by the whole ecosystem. So very excited about some of that. It's a little bit of supply chain work that we've had to do, but we think these are the types of things that are critical. All of this together is what can enable us to address this challenge of power consumption at the edge and sustainability at the edge. And this is not just pure theory. I was fortunate enough, I was in India not too long ago, and I was able to go see a store of Tanishq, which is an important customer of ours, and it was great to see what they were doing. They, historically had to have a back room in their retail store, which is really, square footage in retail is extremely valuable. So to take up space for IT equipment really was a significant investment for them. But we were able to work with them and our local partner, and we developed a solution utilizing the software where now we took everything they were doing, consolidated a bunch of equipment into a much smaller footprint, and it actually used a soundproofed enclosure so that now they no longer needed to have a dedicated room. They could put this soundproof enclosure almost anywhere. They actually increased the amount of management that they were doing, increased the amount of visibility that they got, and they ended up having a much better solution that was a smaller footprint that actually increased the profitability of their store because it freed up space. And again, space in retail means directly translates into dollars. So we're very excited that we were able to work with them and work with our customer and show that some of the philosophies and thoughts that we're having really are being implemented in with our customers. So very excited about that. So some key takeaways for you, and I hope some of this was a valuable use of your time. But first of all, edge data center consumption, it is the new challenge for our industry, and Schneider intends to lead and help solve this challenge that we see coming. There may be debate over the scale and how big it is, but everybody right now, I think, in the industry recognizes we have a problem coming, and Schneider wants to help, and we're going to be there to provide the products and solutions to address these issues. Availability and sustainability, you got to think it can present a paradox because, again, if you made things just highly resilient the way we do in tier 3 data centers, you have the risk of driving down your efficiency. So we need to rethink about what do we mean by resiliency? How are we doing it? How am I going to make sure that I'm bringing my UPSs back for recycling and thinking about the greater sustainability challenge that we're facing in the globe? So it really creates a different way of thinking about how do I design, how am I going to manage, how am I going to service the solutions that I have out there. And finally, third takeaway, manageability, serviceability, new solutions, but most importantly, enabled by an ecosystem. So again, that's why we've just announced our API and we've announced our monitoring and dispatch services, because we're trying to make it easier for the ecosystem to function and easier for us to participate and help you solve the challenges that you have with availability at the local edge. So I hope some of that was helpful. I think we're going to have some Q&A now if you put it into the chat. And again, I thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to talking to you soon.